I wanted to start this video off by saying rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. God bless him and God bless his family. And earlier I covered the news of Charlie Kirk being shot, and while I was covering that news, it was announced that Charlie Kirk has passed away from being fatally shot at an event that he was hosting in Utah. I had exercised, and after I worked out, I took a shower, and I was laying in the bed before I was going to start making videos this afternoon, and I was laying in the bed with my wife and daughter. And the first thing I seen when I opened my eyes was Charlie Kirk being fatally shot for things that he's saying, not things that he's doing. There are people doing evil things in the world, And while Charlie Kirk was putting on his T-shirt today, putting on his belt, getting ready to go to work, kissing his wife goodbye, assuming that he would see his kids later, during that same time, somebody was loading up a gun, deciding that because of some of the things that Charlie Kirk is saying, not doing, they needed to kill him and take him away from his family, and at 31 years old, take him away from his future potential. And I just don't understand that. I obviously don't agree with Charlie Kirk on everything, but like a man, we both have families that we need to get home to, and we both understand that, so we find common ground. And as men, we work with people that we don't agree with sometimes. And I think that Charlie Kirk did good work, and I want his work to continue to ripple. I remember 4 years ago going on Instagram, going on TikTok, all these different apps, and just seeing his short form content and how he started to question some of the things that these people at these colleges were learning. And I think that's the whole point of college, to question what you believe, not to just echo chamber what you believe, but to be questioned about what you believe. So his pursuit of that and him doing his thing in an open air environment because he trusted humanity, that as humans, we could at least relate to the point that we want to get home to our families. And unfortunately, there was somebody, some lunatic today, not to be announced. We don't know who it could be. But some lunatic today decided that some of the things that Charlie Kirk was saying was so offensive and made them so emotional that they needed to kill Charlie Kirk today. And that's sad. And if there's some way I could donate all the money that I made from the live stream, and if there's some way I can donate all of the money to his funeral or to the services or to his family from that this video makes also, I'll do that. That's not a problem to me. But let's go ahead and get into the video. Charlie Kirk versus Feminist. Are we still living in a patriarchy?
I'm wondering what your intentions are. Sorry, I'm new to you in this, and I was just intrigued.
Sure. Hear from different ideas and see where we agree and disagree. So. Yeah.
What's like your purpose, though? Like communication, yes, but like what ideas are you trying to bring or like help people understand?
Conservative ones, traditional American ones.
Oh, okay. Like traditional conservatism or like modern conservative right wing, because they like switched.
I don't like labels, so you can ask me about a topic.
Oh, cool.
So yeah.
Okay.
I think there's only two sexes, no genders, infinite personalities. Life begins at conception. We should deport all the illegals, right?
Yeah.
So these are just some of my
opinions. To be honest, those are basic ideas that were seen as normal 15 years ago. But because people have been so radicalized by just these social media apps, who, by the way, were deemed biased, especially in the last 4 years. There have been plenty of articles talking about this. These algorithms were pushing biased content to promote a certain political narrative. That's been said to be true now. So we know that to be true. And the fact that they were able to do that in a time where people couldn't combat these ideas. And so people became so emotionally attached to these ideas that over the last couple of years, as people have been able to have the free speech with Elon Musk buying X, and I don't want to make it too political, but with him buying X and different other things put into place and people being able to speak their opinions and challenge these ideas, the people who have become so emotionally attached to these ideas seem to be becoming more violent because they can't use their logic to defend what they believe.
So you think it'll like make the country better? Like what are you?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that number one, I want to support our amazing Turning Point USA chapter here where they feel outnumbered and isolated. Number two, we're promoting our event tonight, so I hope you guys show up. Where's our event? It's like in the Montezuma Hall or something. Yeah, it's great. Montezuma Hall, Montezuma, whatever. And number three is I want to see where I might be wrong, strengthen my arguments, and anybody can say anything to me. I think that free speech is the last best hope we have in Western society.
Right. Nice. Okay, then I have a question about like women's rights.
Please.
In America.
Free speech is so costly. Sometimes it costs people their lives. And there are a lot of people who are on X right now, and some of them, a very small minority, let's be clear about that, are cheering on Charlie Kirk's death because they believe that they are activists and they don't take any action. This man was willing to put his money where his mouth is, build this platform, go to colleges, put his neck out there, allow for anybody to come up and people that disagree with him to come up and have conversations with them back and forth. And even though I don't agree with everything that he said, that's real activism. How he went out is how everybody I know to be real activists went out. And those few people who are cheering for his death on Twitter, those aren't activists. Those are virtue signalers who don't really believe in anything, so much so that they're not going to put their life in front of what they believe. They won't even put a profile picture in front of what they believe. They just want to incite rage because they are retards. And that word used to have some utility in this country, and I think we need to bring it back to describe specifically, especially people like that.
I just want to hear what you think,
Sure.
like where you think we're at, how you think we could better them.
Can you, just so I know where you're coming from, can you tell me what is a woman?
Oh, that's a great question. I would classify a woman as somebody with a womb and or
Very
a
reasonable
vagina.
response.
Sometimes
Okay.
people are born with either one or the other, but
Very
Good.
reasonable.
We agree, yes. So as far as women's rights, I don't separate rights based on sex. So you have to tell me what you mean based on that. So.
Okay.
He should have asked her one right that women don't have that men have. Because I can name some rights that women have that men don't have, including the right to vote without having to register for selective service. Women have reproductive rights. In majority of the states, women can choose to abort a baby or give it up for adoption, while a man is held responsible for parenthood. So those are just two things off the top of my head that I can name that women have rights to that men don't have access to. But I can't tell you any rights that men have that women don't have.
Oh, that's interesting. So do you believe that there's a difference right now in like people's rights and
No. I mean, there's male-female differences, but there are no male rights or women. Can you give me an example
Oh,
of?
okay, like patriarchy. That's what I'm getting at. Do
Okay.
you believe that we live in a patriarchy and it negatively affects women?
No.
No.
Yeah. So, for example,
Yeah.
men are more likely to commit suicide,
Yeah.
Okay.
more likely to die at work, more likely to declare bankruptcy.
Lock it
Yeah.
in.
Women are far less likely to be in credit card debt, far more likely to graduate from college,
Yeah.
far more likely to get a high-paying job.
Men are more likely to be victims of violent crimes. Men are more likely to do the jobs that kill you. Men are more likely to die in war protecting the society and more likely to die doing the jobs that maintain society. If the patriarchy was oppressive to women, we would send women to war. Like Andrew Tate said, it would be a baby mama war. We would go to other countries and go, let's just put all of our women against each other in a big war and whoever wins, wins. But because men fight and die to protect women, that's not the case. And that's not even including all of the inventions that men have created to exclusively benefit women, like birth control, all the types of different contraceptives, modern female hygiene products. To get welfare programs, you damn near have to be a woman. Women can vote without having to register for the draft. We have female exclusive shelters, female exclusive sports, because we deem that those are necessary to protect. If the patriarchy is oppressing anybody, it's significantly more oppressive to men.
Do you think that that's a really good point. Do you
Thank you.
think that the suicide rates or the depression rates and the bankruptcy rates that you just mentioned regarding men have to do with the fact that men are pushed to be less open about their emotions? They're less available to being able to communicate how they feel with others. They're taught to be more violent and
They're
be more
taught to be more
physically harmful
violent.
to themselves and others. And
Well, what women have to understand is that men are natural hunters, and because of that, we have to be able to turn our emotions on and off sometimes and be able to compartmentalize our emotions in order to hunt. And because we're tasked with the duty of protecting society, sometimes we have to be capable of killing. That's why we associate bravery with the masculine, because bravery isn't necessarily not being afraid, it's being willing to do the thing even though you are afraid. So if somebody breaks into my house, I have to be able to turn off my emotions so that I can get up. Even though I'm scared, I have to be able to turn off my emotions so that I can get up and protect my family. So it's the same thing that women say that they don't like in men because there's a small minority of men who commit violent crimes against people. It's the same thing that most men use in order to feed women, in order to protect society, and in order to be willing to do the dangerous, risky jobs that you have to sometimes turn your emotions off to do. And it's not about not having emotions, it's about knowing when to be emotional. Most men are not violent criminals. Most men don't use their capacity for violence to harm people, especially women. If anything, if there is a man that's committing a violent crime, generally speaking, Vast majority of the time, they'll commit it against men. Even in jail, even in prison, the men in there see the men who commit crimes against women as lower than, because as men, we determine that women are something that we should protect. So sure, there's a small minority of men that commit violent crimes against women and other people, but those men are usually subdued by men who are also willing to use violence to protect people. So the common consensus in Western culture has been for the past 60 years, because there's a small minority of men who harm women, men should behave like women and all crime would disappear. Young men don't express emotions like young women. The first emotion that young women feel is sadness. The first emotion that young men feel is typically anger and frustration. Young men have to learn to take their emotions in, compartmentalize them, channel them into passion and creation and being productive. So when you have a young man that's emotional, you don't tell him to just vent about his emotions. You tell him to go join a sport. Tell him to go join MMA. Tell him to be in the chess club. Tell him to go take on engineering. Tell him to take in his emotion, channel it into passion, create art, be productive, do things like that. That's how men express their emotion. I'm going to tell you right now, a man that's not productive, a man that starts to feel hopeless because he's not productive, and a man that feels like he can't change his circumstances is a man that's going to be emotional. When men feel like they have the power to change their circumstances, they're significantly less emotional, and that comes with competence. And men don't become more competent by sitting around and crying about their problems. The man that loaded up a gun today and shot Charlie Kirk was a person that was living off of this rhetoric. He was expressing his emotions, which for men typically express as anger and frustration.
That pushes them towards suicide, depression, and bankruptcy.
And I think it's the opposite. I think that we're teaching men to be metrosexual versions of their former selves.
Right. What does metrosexual mean to you?
Indecipherable between a man and woman.
Oh.
So,
what's a man and woman to you? What's the difference between them?
Well, a man is you're looking at a man, and I think I'm looking at a woman, if I'm not mistaken.
Nice,
right?
Yeah. That was funny.
Yeah, thank you. There's characteristics, archetypes, but we have differences. There are significant male-female differences. I think
like
those.
What?
Well, men tend to be more assertive. Women tend to be more agreeable.
Innately or taught?
Innately. And I wouldn't say
innately
taught.
Based on what science?
Well, just for example, if we look at artificial intelligence scanned over 10,000 brains using a SPECT scan, and was able to determine male-female differences 95% of the time of different brain functions based on basal ganglia, amygdala,
do you know the age?
Cerebellum.
Because interestingly enough,
ages
I read
14
a study.
To 22.
Okay, 14 to 22. I read a study recently that before the age of 10, brains are neuroscientists are unable to be able to tell the difference in gender based on the brain, but at a certain point, the social implications that children are taught.
Social implications more like hormones after puberty. Yeah, for a while, girls are stronger than boys until the puberty kicks in and the hormones kick in, and those are part of the things that develop your brain to be different. For example, there's a guy named Dr. John Gray who studied the hormonal differences between men and women and how they react to stress. Women alleviate stress by talking about things. Men alleviate stress by solving problems. This is one of the reasons why when your girlfriend is talking about her day and you're trying to solve the problem, she gets annoyed at you trying to solve the problem because she just wants to talk about the problem. That's how she alleviates the stress. While men alleviate stress by solving their problems, talking about the problems actually cause more stress.
When you're stressed, if a woman can talk about what she's feeling, what she's missing, what she's not getting, that will actually raise her estrogen level and her stress levels will go down. Now, if a man is stressed and he talks about his feelings, his stress will only increase. That's a big aha, because every time a man is stressed, he'll stop talking. And when he stops talking, women panic because they don't know what's different. And they want to go in there. What are you feeling? What's going on? And if he starts talking, he'll just feel worse and worse and worse. And if he's a little frustrated with her, annoyed with her, and he sort of backs off, he's mulling it over in order to let it go. Just like a woman would talk about things to let it go.
So young men have to be capable of solving their own problems.
Start making them act differently. But it's been shown that if a man or a woman were given the same... Okay, have you heard that men they have more spatial awareness, like in their brain? Have you heard that one?
I think that's probably true, yeah.
Yeah. So we learned that if women are given a month of the same practices as children that men are given or allowed to do, whether it comes to what they're playing, the media they're intaking, like what they're told and how they're told to act, that women have the same spatial awareness ability as men. So we're finding that innately the brain is the same, but because of the social constructs that we're taught on men and women and how they're supposed to act, their brain ability to activate certain parts changes. So by 14, the brain does seem different.
You raise kids?
Tell me.
Have you ever raised
No.
kids?
No, I have 6 nieces and nephews,
Yeah.
though,
No,
men and
exactly.
women.
You couldn't be more wrong. If you're even around a 2-year-old boy and 2-year-old girl, it's not a matter of what they're taught. The girls are running to the dresses, the boys are running to the guns. You know who
Exactly.
agrees with me? One of the leading feminists of the 60s and 70s, Gloria
Yeah.
Steinman, who wrote Feminist Mystique.
Yes,
And
I've
even,
read that.
Even she, who was like a hardcore gender is taught, when she raised her kids, she was like, oh my goodness. There
There's
is
a
a
difference.
fundamental innate difference
Holy
between men and
shit.
women. And it's not
Who
just
would've
brain
thought?
structure.
Right.
It's testosterone, it's estradiol, it's
Okay.
estrogen production, it is hormone levels, it is all, and there, I could just prove it. If you sit down with a young lady, they're far more likely to talk about micro topics, and men are more likely to talk about macro topics.
Yeah.
What's
So
the difference between micro and macro?
Great question.
topic?
So if I say
Micro tends to be about people, macro tends to be about things. And that's why when you even look at the professions, and Dr. Jordan Peterson, when he first came on the scene, he was talking about this. Women tend to pick things that have to do with people, and men tend to pick things that have to do with things.
with a young lady, she'd be much more likely to talk about friends, relationships,
Yeah.
and things that are very intimate to her. A young man would be more likely to talk about the weather, sports, or the stock market or politics.
Yeah.
And that's not taught. That is innate. That is innate into our bioprogramming.
What
Now,
is bioprogramming?
how we were designed.
What do you mean how we're designed?
I mean, I believe that there's a creator that designed us and that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. And you might not agree. I would just say how you were born. I
Yeah.
could even say just the
God bless you, man. God bless you, man. God bless your family, brother.
common ground on that.
Oh, okay, so the creator chose that men and women have separate roles and it's innate.
Well, not just separate roles, but made differently. And out of being made differently, you get different roles.
Right. So if science proves that the other way, do you rely on creator over science?
But science has done the opposite. So, for example, in a Harvard study, they put 50 women in a room alone, and they put 50 men in the room alone.
What age?
Not relevant, but around 25, right?
Relevant. But okay.
So,
No, sorry. I'm actually having so much fun.
Okay,
sorry.
um,
Keep going.
so if you really, I'm fascinated that you think that 8-year-olds' brains are infinitely neuroplastic. But we'll get to that back to that
No,
later.
no.
So,
When they're like babies. By 8 years old, you're already going through school and you've had so many
Yeah.
relationships. They're definitely affected.
But again, if you were right, John Money would have been proven right. But we'll get to that later. So, that test has been replicated so many times, and even the Dutch, who are like the most progressive on this, have gotten away from the idea of tabula rasa that boys and girls are born similarly with brain differences. But we'll agree to disagree on that. But anyway, 25-year-olds were put into a room, okay?
Right.
And they said, men, what do you think about when they're alone? No surprise, sports and sex,
Yeah.
right? Young ladies, what do you think about in the room alone for 30 minutes just by themselves? They replayed prior conversations that they had. For the record, no man in the history of the species has replayed conversations that we had and thought about them when we were alone in a room.
And the only time we do that is when we're hyper emotional because we feel like being the bigger man, we let somebody get over on us. There is nothing that sit in your soul more as a man than when you feel like you did the right thing, but maybe you should have punched that motherfucker in the face. Sometimes being the bigger man and choosing the right thing just sit on your spirit. Sometimes you just go, man, we should have just fought. Situations like that will be replaying in your head for weeks. And I think that's what happens to these young men. They get slighted, they feel powerless, they go to people for help, they get this feminized idea that they should just express their emotions, and then they start loading the gun. Instead, you tell that boy to join MMA or get into the weight room, and just his confidence and his physical appearance will change everything for him. When the bully realizes he got a fight on his hands, the bully ain't gonna want to bully him no more. And when the young man realizes that he has the power to change his circumstances, that's when he's gonna feel better.
Like what was this person said? Women are far more relational, micro, than men. And that's just based on how our design is.
Yeah.
Whoa. I think that you just lied that all men don't think. That's such a...
It's
that's
called a
such
joke. I'm sure there's a man
okay.
somewhere that recollected on a conversation.
Well, I didn't know that in a dialect that's a debate based on science and you're talking about a study. That would you implement
Oh,
a joke that's
brother.
based on a
Yes,
truth?
humor is a tool of a rhetorician to try to get people, to chuckle, a little levity. So, yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you. Let me ask you a question. Do you think
Yeah.
testosterone and estrogen play into people's ability to have drive, ambition, feelings? Do you think testosterone and estrogen are important?
Yes.
Okay, so then if women are lower in testosterone and higher in estrogen, and men are lower in estrogen and higher in testosterone, wouldn't that, independent of society's framing, play into the idea that there are natural differences between the two?
I think that it definitely plays into the idea that there are natural differences. And I think there are natural differences. I just think to an extent that as a society, we've decided that men, because they have more testosterone, and we've known testosterone makes people more aggravated, what's aggravated, I'll just leave it.
Aggressive?
Aggressive,
Yeah,
yes,
there we go.
sure.
I'll take aggressive.
Yeah, thank you. That it makes people or men more aggressive, that we've decided that that means that men are not in control of their moral ability or their ability to choose what they're going to do. So it becomes like men have more testosterone, but they still have the ability to choose to treat people better or with less aggression. Like it's like, oh, men don't.
Men aren't more aggressive than women. We just express our aggression differently. And this is something that Jordan Peterson talked about too. Men tend to express their aggression directly through physical violence, while women tend to express their aggression indirectly through being passive aggressive. So because women are less direct, they operate in the gray area of plausible deniability. A man will punch you in the face. A woman will tell you your mother never loved you until you punch her to the face. And when the police officers get there, she'll go, I didn't do anything. I don't know why he lashed out. And then they'll arrest you. And then she'll go on Facebook and assassinate your character. So women are just as aggressive. They just manifest it differently. And also, too, this should be noted. When women have the monopoly on force, like when women are in the positions where they have force, when they're taking care of the elderly and children, they are physically aggressive also. Women are more likely to abuse the elderly, and women are more likely to abuse children sexually, physically, in every single way. Now, of course, just like the violent men, this is a small minority of people, but it's just important to note when women do have the monopoly on force and they understand that, they do use physical force as a way to express their aggression too.
The ability to make those choices, that's almost like downplaying men's ability by saying that they just have to give in to their aggression.
I'm not contesting that. The mark of a true man is one who can control himself.
Okay.
Do you think that do you think there's a problem of trying to turn women too masculine?
Turning women too masculine. What's masculine for you?
Well, let's just say not agreeable, forceful, aggressive, aggressive in the best possible term, forward-thinking, more macro, more visionary, less feeling-based, more rational, more yearning towards reason and dialogue, and less towards compassion or the ethos.
And what's feminine to you?
The inverse of that, so more on the emotion side, less macro, more micro, much
So
more.
women are just what men are not?
No, they're different sides of a species coin, right? So you have a human species, you have a male and female,
Yeah.
and there's differences. So I could also posit it separately. A woman is more compassionate, a man is less compassionate. So there's two ways to word it.
Well, it all comes down to what we're geared to do, because men are the only ones that can protect society. We tend to have our gender roles and the ideas of masculinity revolve around a person that is more likely or capable of protecting. Because women are the only ones that can have kids, their gender roles and femininity tends to revolve more around nurturing. For example, you would call a man who's a little bit more muscular, you would call a man who's fighting in the UFC against other UFC fighters more masculine, because they're displaying characteristics of a man that's more capable of protecting. But you wouldn't call it masculine for a UFC fighter to beat up on a little kid or somebody that can't defend themselves, because you wouldn't really see the second thing as more along the lines of protection. You would see it as more like brutality, senseless brutality. So even a guy named Andrew Wilson, he has a channel called The Crucible, makes this argument very well. He says that our gender roles revolve around the things that are necessary for us to do to sustain society. Because men are the only ones that can protect society, our gender roles and what we consider to be masculine tend to revolve around protection and provision. While because women are the only ones that can give birth to the people in society, and you need people in society in order to have a society, their gender roles and what is traditionally considered to be feminine more revolves around nurturing and child rearing.
Right.
Do you think that there's a problem about trying to force women to be too masculine?
No, I don't
Yes.
think there's a problem.
Okay, well, I disagree. We have a crisis in this country. I'm curious, why do you think that we have so many unmarried young 30-something women? It's the most in the history of recorded data.
That's a good question. I don't know if I've ever pondered why we have unmarried women.
Why do you think that it's the young women are the most depressed, alcohol addicted, and psychiatric drug addicted in history?
Is that true?
Yes.
Oh yeah, the
I
most
think it would be
miserable
this-
they've ever been. I'm just curious, why do you think that is?
Yeah.
And they're watching more pornography than ever before, specifically violent pornography, to be exact.
I guess I would say that I think it's because like the society that we live in, right, like capitalistic, consumeristic, where there's like constant processing and overconsumption that includes like drugs, alcohol, like the overconsumption.
So women going
leads
into the
people-
workforce a lot could create a lot of depression for them.
Yeah, same with men.
Okay, but then shouldn't women, like, I don't know, stay at home and have children and do what they're designed to do?
Men are also
Wouldn't that make them happier?
have the most depression that they have right now in this
Yes,
country.
I
So you
agree.
could make the same argument for men that you just made for women. Shouldn't they
I'm
go
asking
home and be
questions.
out of
I'm
the
saying
workforce?
maybe the men are upset because the women that they're trying to date are more interested in taking care of cats and trying to become partner at the local law firm.
Yeah.
And they say, I don't want to get married till I'm 30. And maybe that creates a sense of despondency when a young male being raised in this country sees everything rigged against them.
So do you not believe that women should be working?
Of course, I believe in liberty. I'm just asking,
Okay.
has there been an unintended tragedy where we have the most financially successful 30 to 35-year-old cohort?
Women have always been able to work throughout history. There have always been female business owners, authors, women in politics. They've been nurses, they've been doctors, they've worked in customer service, they've been daycare providers, teachers, all these different things, but they still had the foundation of prioritizing family over capitalism or making money. Those women, even if they did work, worked out of necessity to contribute to their family. The women today don't want family because they want to pursue career. I think that's what he's talking about.
Gender and politics and Gen Z, and you ask about what's important to success, they are worlds apart. Look at this. Men, Gen Z, men under 30 who voted for Donald Trump, what were they most likely to say makes for a successful life? Having children. Number one, women, Gen Z, voted for Kamala Harris. Where's having? Wow. All the way down here at the bottom. Couldn't be more opposite. Second to last for women who voted for Harris was being married. Being married, look at this, near the top of the list for men who voted for Donald Trump. Another huge difference, a very common answer for Gen Z women who voted for Harris was having emotional stability. For Gen Z men who voted for Donald Trump, you got to go all the way to the bottom to find that one. These are some core basic questions about how people think about life.
And so you have a collapsing birth rate and you have collapsing marriage rates because men don't want to marry women, generally speaking, at the end of their fertility. And it's funny because I just think about the amount of propaganda it would take to convince a woman that something that your body is literally designed to do, you shouldn't pursue so that you can go make money. It's like saying that a person who has legs shouldn't walk. It just doesn't make sense. Your body is literally designed to do this thing, and you don't think that you're going to find fulfillment in doing this thing?
Of young women in history.
And men.
Well, again, the
In
women.
history. Like men and women are the most sick and depressed they've
the
ever
women
been.
are far more depressed than the men. The men are depressed.
But you just said that the men were more depressed and that's why their suicide
they're
and
more
depression
suicidal,
rates are higher.
and they're largely more suicidal.
So they're
'cause
more suicidal.
Women are more likely to attempt, actually. The issue is men are more likely to use deadly force, so they're more likely to use weapons, while women are more likely to use softer methods like prescription drugs.
Suicidal, but they're less
One
depressed?
sec. No,
Okay,
they're
sorry.
more successful at committing suicide than women.
Oh,
That's a big
understood.
difference, okay? Women commit suicide. No, it's true.
So
Women
we're
try to
better at
commit
it.
suicide more,
Yeah.
and yet women will go through 3 or 4 attempted suicide attempts. Men usually only 1. You can look
Yeah.
it up. It's just the way it is. But I'm just curious, what is it about the 30 to 35-year-old female? Do you think there might be something missing? Do you think that there's like this biological urge to get married and procreate that we might have been suppressing? Because it is the it's the childless, least married cohort in the history of the country.
Yeah. I believe that marriage and reproduction are beautiful things. I
Good.
do.
Do you think we should encourage it more for young women?
I think we could encourage like a deeper understanding of people's individual sense of self.
What?
And then through that, if people can better understand their wants and needs and become more self-aware about who they are and what they need, that ultimately they would lead them to like better and more efficient decision making for themselves.
Okay. And
Whether or not that means marriage.
Last question. You posited this. How would you define the patriarchy?
Oh, the patriarchy. So patriarchy, like the epistemology of the word.
Or just like, do you believe it exists in the country today? Or
Yeah, I believe patriarchy exists. Patriarchy comes from pater, right? Pater means father in Latin. So patriarchy is father over or men over. So it's like a men ruling, right? So we see it in the fact that God or the divinity is represented as men,
Yeah.
which was only happened like halfway through the history of humans. So it was like a matrilineal matriarchy society for a while. We see it in the fact that women take men's last name. We see it in the way that in the way that men are viewed.
Well, all of that stuff, even related to religion, comes from the understanding that men inherently have to lead. There is no such thing ever as a matriarchy. Even if a woman is in positions of power, the men are still going to have to do the hard, dirty, dangerous jobs necessary to sustain society, and the men are still going to have to fight the wars. So there's never going to be a such thing as matriarchy where women have a domain over men, because it's impossible. Because men, as Andrew Wilson would always make the argument, men have the monopoly on force. The underlying principle of nature is violence. To be able to eat something, you have to be more capable of violence. To be able to rule over something, or to be able to make the rules, you have to be more capable of violence. And because men are more capable of violence and men have the monopoly on force, women are forced to appeal to men to give them the rights or the things that they want in society. Women have never en masse taken up arms and overthrew a society or created a revolution. It's because they're incapable. What they do have to do is they have to appeal to the benevolence of men in society to give them the things that they want. For example, Afghanistan. When the men in Afghanistan decided that the women didn't have rights, the women just didn't have rights. And that's why feminism is a horrible idea, because it teaches women that they're powerful and adversary to men. When really women are more powerful when they utilize their femininity, and they're the type of women that are virtuous enough that men deem worthy of protecting and being benevolent towards. Those are the women that have more power because they can weaponize men to do things on their behalf. So women are super powerful. In fact, they're so powerful that they can have their will be done by not even lifting a finger, just by appealing to the apex predator, and that is men. That's only ever the case if the men in society deem those women worthy of protecting and giving things to and being benevolent to. The women in society today promote abortion. They promote and encourage other women to be hoes. They tell women that they shouldn't have families and contribute to society by having children in pursuit of careers. And so you see the opinions changing on these things, especially amongst young men, where young men are saying, why should we be benevolent towards these types of women? Why should we be willing to go and fight and die in wars and do the hard jobs to protect society for these types of women? You're seeing all of this start to happen slowly but surely amongst the youth. And once these young people come into power, things are going to be totally different. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing for women. So I don't think that women find power in being adversarial to men. I think women find power in being feminine and being complementary to men.
Or like men view women and how women kind of have to adhere to the way that men want them to be portrayed. And I agree with you that porn
they have to. They don't have a choice.
Toxic, poison.
Toxic, yeah. And I think that's an aspect of the patriarchy, right? Like, if you go on a porn website, which I'm sure you haven't in a while, but if
Not in a while. I used to be addicted, though.
Yeah. Whoa, congrats.
And I encourage everyone to break free of that addiction. It's
yeah,
terrible
me
for
too.
you.
Yeah, me too. That's great. Proud of you for that one. Yeah, but if you go on a porn website, you can see that like the view of all of the porn is from the perspective of a man and it's of a woman. And these kinds of aspects show that right now we live in a society where it's a man's view, it's men over. So like we're all taking on...
The new data released from Pornhub shows that women are watching more violent porn than men are. They're watching violent porn at higher rates than men are.
Yeah, I thank you for that.
Yeah.
First on the porn thing, 85% of people that consume porn are men, so they're obviously going to shoot it in a way that is more attuned to men. For example,
what if it was shooted for women and then they started watching porn more?
They would change the perspective because they're in it to make money. The same reason why Lifetime movies don't have rock and roll music.
Exactly.
And they tend to be very like uplifting, flowery, emotional based, and hyper feminine in the writing, because most people that watch Lifetime movies are women.
What's Lifetime movie?
Okay, a Lifetime movie is like a feel-good movie on cable TV that has like a very poorly written narrative and usually ends in some sort of
like
overly...
Hallmark?
Yeah, like Hallmark.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. That's the best way I could.
Got it.
But thank you for the dialogue. I appreciate it.
I will say at least she was willing to sit and have a conversation, man. I just Charlie Kirk, man. 31 years old. His kids now don't have their father. His wife is widowed. And all for what? Because he said things, not because he did things that was harmful to people, but because he said things. It's an actual genuine tragedy.